Alright, we're going to try to make a point here. A stupid fool criminal pushing and selling narcotics and drugs can't make a single buck without selling it to a stupid. All of these bankster gangster schemes and scams don't work without the sucker. They got to have a sucker, they got to have a victim, they got to have a pigeon in order to make these financial schemes and swindles function. In other words, the engineering and the design of these fraud schemes to sell a whole bunch of loans and mortgages and, contracts for deed and all this other financial product. The only way they can sell it upstream the commercial negotiable paper is to have some dumb, stupid to sign on in the first place. Let me see if I can make sense of this for everybody. Without customers, a McDonald's restaurant fails. If nobody will buy the automobiles and pickup trucks you're building and selling, the automobile and truck manufacturer will quickly go out of business. So, all of these bundled up securities, these subprime predatory mortgages that they sold to all the big mortgage funding quasi-governmental agencies and governmental agencies and banks and pension funds and the investment houses. All of those bundled up subprime predatory mortgages that they sold, and well, they stole trillions. The only way this entire scheme and scam functions is if you figure in and plan on the dummies that bought the stuff in the first place, that signed up for the mortgage, for the overappraised 125% financing, docs, what do they call that there? Documentation only, no credit verification, no down payment, liar's loans. That's how they baited and lured everybody into the scam. Now, I got some people up in Utah that are just hugely in love with the LDS Mormon BYU Go Cougars gang, and they don't like the idea that Utah is a hotbed of fraud. It's known as affinity fraud, where the Mormons cheat the LDS and the LDS cheat the people at BYU, and then of course BYU cheats the Cougars fans, and then it goes around and around and around. If you take a look at the history of the Mormon LDS church, you'll discover that real estate shenanigans has been the whole history of the church. What they call it, the LDS Mormon Safety Society. They've always been involved in private banking schemes and scams in one or another form, and a lot of real estate shenanigans from New York to Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, Missouri, and then obviously Utah, Nevada, California, Oregon, Alaska. They're huge up in Alaska. Florida, there's a lot of Mormon Florida real estate chuck and jive going on down there around Ocala, Florida, and beyond. And it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not just the Mormons. It's Deutsche Bank and J.P. Morgan Chase and WAMU. Let's not forget old WAMU, and Bank of America and Wells Fargo and Wachovia and Superior Bank and First City Bank and John C. McCone, the former director of the CIA. The Western banks of John C. McCone. And then you've got all those bankster gangster slobs around the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bushes and Oliver North and Richard Secord and John Poindexter and Bill Casey and that whole Bud McFarlane gang with Congressman Charlie Wilson and Senator John Tower and the Triad. Let's not forget the Triad Corporation. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to sum this one up because I'm kind of tired this afternoon. Back in 1966, that's, wow, 43 years ago or so, I was reading a story in the Reader's Digest. It was entitled Beware of the Ranchero Racketeers. And it was all about the land swindles and land scams of Arizona fame. And then there's a whole bunch of other Paul Friggan's writings about the land schemes and the land scams of Florida. And there's a huge amount of, I mean, it's just massive amount of materials that have been written about the Texas land schemes and scams by that guy Judson Witham. He writes a lot about the land swindles and frauds of Texas and California and Alaska and Hawaii, New York, Pennsylvania, the Carolinas, Tennessee. He writes about the land scheming and the dirt flipping of Arkansas and the daisy chains of the Clintons, the Obamas, and the Bushes. So ladies and gentlemen, and at the very epicenter and heart of this giant banking fiasco and all these funny mortgages, you can't do any of it without the real estate. And you can't do any of the real estate wheeling and dealing and rob the lending agencies without the suckers, the dummies, the pigeons, the mark. They're the marks of these criminals to buy up this subprime predatory mortgage transaction fiasco. What it is, you got to have suckers to buy it up. And, well, that's where they shot themselves in the foot. I don't know if you've ever heard of the story of the gang that couldn't shoot straight. Well, where they messed themselves up in their racketeering schemes is they designed into the schemes the necessary participation of the consumers, the borrowers, the wannabe homeowners. None of it works. None of it works at all without your participation. See? So that's part of the racketeering scheme. That's a predicate act of fraud and racketeering, conspiracy, deception, and violations of not only RESPA and the Bank Secrecy Act, but all kinds of other anti-fraud provisions of the Consumer Protection Codes and the consumer banking regulations across the United States in the U.S. codes and in the state laws. But I'm going to leave it right there, folks, and have a nice weekend, and enjoy reading the pleadings that are on file in Greenville, Tennessee, and federal court in the Eastern District of Tennessee. Case number 2:19-CV-005. We're going round for round with the HUD and the Federal Housing Finance Administration, Department of Justice, FBI, and a whole bunch of other people in the Senate and the Congress. At the White House, let's not forget old Donald Trump, because the people financing his real estate empire are in it up to their freaking eyeballs. Donald Trump, you need to find some new bankers, because the one you got are going out of business. I think Deutsche Bank's on its last breaths. Deutsche Bank's going to crash and burn. Just a suspicion I've got. J.P. Morgan's going to go down with him before it's all over. He's going to go down with him. Imagine that. Folks, we'll leave it right there. Always hasta la vista. God bless, and we'll be coming back.